Hey everyone, my name is Rich, and this is Rich Talks Records, episode number 54. And today we are going to do an idea that I heisted from another YouTuber. We are going to do the best and worst song on every Prince studio album. And I thought that that would be a fun, cool thing to do. And the ground rules are going to be no protege albums, no live albums, and no posthumous album. I got the idea from a YouTube channel that I really enjoy, the CD guy, Johnny Z. He mostly does rock and metal, but he does this best worst thing. And so he's done like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Slayer. And I thought that that would be a really cool way to approach Prince because there are a number of really great Prince-specific YouTube channels that get far more granular than even I would be able to get. But my favorite Prince YouTube channel easily is the Purple Nerd channel, and I will be linking to that, and I highly recommend you check that out because he does really great, informative, engaging videos that I am a really big fan of. So at any rate, I thought this would be a cool way to do a Prince video. I've wanted to do a Prince video the entire time I've had the channel. I really haven't sort of figured out how I want to do it. I will most likely get into my long and winding history with Prince as the video goes along, but otherwise, let's just get into it. Prince's first album, 1978's For You. And this is an album that when I first heard it as a 16-year-old in 1993, I bought it on cassette, I didn't really care for it that much. And I have always kind of struggled with it. I think in some ways I might actually struggle with the production more than the actual songs. The obvious best would probably be Soft and Wet, the single, or the closer, I'm Yours, which is really, really great. But for my favorite song, I'm going to go with the weird alien bossa nova of Crazy You. I absolutely love it. For worst song, I don't know. There isn't really a worst song. There's just some okay songs. I think the most okay song and the most kind of midway song sort of its time would be Baby. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but that would be my choice if there is a worst, quote-unquote, worst song in this album. Next up, we have 1979's self-titled album, an album that I also bought when I was 16 in 1993 and absolutely love. It is a wonderful album that has meant a lot to me over the years. Best song, this one, so it was a little tough because it has Bambi, it has Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, which has one of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded in all of human history, but there was a clear, this was an easy one to choose the best song, the full version of I Want to Be Your Lover. The version that's up on YouTube is the single, no, you need the full 7-minute instrumental extravaganza. It's perfect, it's one of his greatest songs, I absolutely love it, I love everything about it. It's miraculous. Worst song, again, not really a worst song, just sort of least favorite. I'll go with You. It's perfectly fine for what it is. It's the least moment where he's living up to his incredible talents. We'll put it that way. Now we have 1980's Dirty Mind, probably Prince's first full-on masterpiece. For the best song, this was a very tough one given that all of side 2 is totally perfect and one of the greatest album sides ever recorded. I still have to go with the title track. It sets the tone of the album. It sort of introduces the new, modern, updated Prince. I absolutely love the weird glacial minimalist chrome-plated synthesizers. The lyrics, the melody, the intensity of the performance, perfect. The worst song would be the side ender Got a Broken Heart Again. It's just kind of clearly objectively the weakest song, though it is still a pretty brilliant act of album sequencing because it's sort of a rope-a-dope fake out before you get the full-on onslaught of the masterpiece, the seamless masterpiece that is side 2. Next is 1981's Controversy. Again, I'm going to sort of cop out and pick the title track. It's, again, opening definitive statement. It is Prince developing and leading into more sprawling song structures. and more free-flowing. It's incredible. The lyrics are great, vocal performance, the guitar, everything is perfect. It is a perfect mission statement. I first heard it in one of MTV's, it was the theme song to MTV's Sex in the 90s series when I was like 12. So I already liked the song before I ever heard the album, but I love it. It's absolutely perfect. Worst song, there isn't a worst song because this is another masterpiece. This was a very tough one to pick a worst. There isn't a worst. If I have to pick a worst, Ronnie Talk to Russia, but the entire album is perfect. The entire album is, you know, at like operating at the highest level. Next, we have 1982's 1999, Prince's massive commercial breakthrough and his first double album. This album is an absolute masterpiece. This was virtually impossible to pick a favorite song. I have listened to this album more than I can even count. Let's Pretend We're Married, Automatic, Lady Cab Driver, and one of my favorite things that Prince ever did, the total insanity and self-parody, but also believable and intense and awesome International Lover. International Lover is like one of my favorite Prince things ever, and as an album closer, it's so perfect. All of those nearly took the top spot, but I have to go with the massive, incredible, perfect funk extravaganza, DMSR, Dance Music Sex Romance. Doesn't get much better than that. And as far as worst, again, there is no worst. Worst doesn't exist. When I was younger, I didn't really care for Something in the Water Does Not Compute, but I guess the least song here, but it's still amazing, is All the Critics Love You in New York, so we will go with that. Next is the big one, 1984's Purple Rain, and this is an especially big one because this is the first album that I ever bought with my own money when I was 6 years old in 1984. So this is the very copy that I went to Peaches and purchased with allowance money. And the inner sleeve is long gone because I had taped it to my wall, so the record just sits loose. Yes, I have other copies of this, but this is where it all begins in my musical life. And I will now tell this story. Little after this album came out, my father met Prince, and I will throw the photo of that up. My dad came home from work one day, and he had met Prince. And he said, so I'd had my birthday at this point, because it was like late 84, early 85. And my dad said he didn't really know what to say to Prince. This is really weird. There was the Teddy Ruxpin rollout. So there was this group of Japanese businessmen in the lobby of my dad's office doing the Teddy Ruxpin rollout. There's the Teddy Ruxpin rollout, and like 40 feet away is Prince. And my dad could have chosen to go to try to get an early Teddy Ruxpin for me, or go to meet Prince and say that he had met Prince and like impress me, right? So he chose Prince. My father chose wisely. My father, not really knowing what to say to Prince, said, "My son really loves your music." And Prince says, "How old is your son?" And my dad said, 7. And Prince turns to his bodyguard, who apparently was not Big Chick. I showed my dad a picture years later. He did not remember that guy being Big Chick. And Prince turns to his bodyguard and goes, "Every year they just get younger and younger." And then the photo is snapped, and my father is on his way. So that was how my dad met Prince. So Purple Rain, one of the greatest albums ever made, one of the greatest pop art statements of all time. I sometimes on the internet see people say that this is overrated. That is objectively and subjectively wrong. Every single second of this album is absolutely, completely, and utterly essential. Picking a favorite song, funnily enough, was easy. It's The Beautiful Ones. Is it arguably Prince's greatest vocal performance? Perhaps. It's incredible, and it was so intense that when I was a child, I saw a flaming skull emerge from under the chair I was sitting in as this song played, and ran screaming out of the room because I was a terrified 7-year-old. But then I, of course, was listening to the album like within a day. Least favorite song, or worst song, there are no worst songs. This album is perfect. I'll go with Baby, I'm a Star. It's the least on an album of absolute masterpieces. So, yes. Next, we have another one that was like 1999, virtually impossible to decide. 1985's Around the World in a Day. The only criticism I have of this album is that it is not a double album, because if you take the full-length versions that are on the singles and include Hello, the 11-minute Hello, and the full 7-minute version of Girl, the full 25 or whatever minute version of America, you could easily make a double album out of this, and you then have a very strong argument that it's Prince's greatest album. Picking a favorite, virtually impossible, I will say. So it was down between Paisley Park, Condition of the Heart, Pop Life, and The Ladder, with America and Temptation right behind. Today, in this moment, I am going to pick Pop Life. It encapsulates the themes of the album, the sound of the album. It's perfect. I always look forward to hearing it. Love everything about it. Worst song, again, no worst songs, does not exist. So I will pick the least song, and that's Tambourine. I still love Tambourine. It is awesome. It is perfect. Nothing but perfection here. So that's that. On to 1986's Parade, another absolute masterpiece, and another album that if you put together the single edits of the songs, you can easily make another incredible double album, especially Love or Money is amazing. And the full 10-minute version of Mountains, yes. I Wonder You, Mountains, Kiss, Do You Lie, all easy contenders to be the best song on this. But I kind of have to go with Sometimes It Snows in April. Again, I had a weird kind of revelation during the pandemic. I rewatched Under the Cherry Moon, and I kind of realized I think I love this movie. I think it's incredible. And I kind of resaw the album and the movie as one thing, plus the singles. It all unfolded in front of me, and Sometimes It Snows in April is the linchpin holding all of that together. An absolute masterpiece. I'm sure you are well aware of how great it is. Worst, again, there isn't. I almost picked Life Could Be So Nice because of those weird orchestral songs with the distended Wendy and Lisa vocals and stuff. I almost picked that. It's my least favorite of those because I really love the other ones so much. But I finally just went with the film soundtrack music, basically, for Venus de Milo. It's lovely, it's beautiful, but there could have been another song on here. Whatever. That would be, but it's still fantastic. So Venus de Milo, I'm going with that. Next up, we have 8 by Madhouse from 1987. I don't have a copy of that album, as you can see. But Madhouse, I was unaware of these albums for a really long time. I didn't really listen to them at all until the late 2010s. Best song, I'll go with 2. It's a really cool groove. It works. I like it a lot. It's the one I guess that's the one I just like the most. Worst, the sound collage, it's cool, the sound collage 5. It's, again, nothing wrong with it, but I have to pick something, so we'll go with that. And here, of course, is 1987's absolute masterpiece, Sign of the Times, quite possibly Prince's single greatest work. This one was virtually impossible. I now have filmed this part 3 times, picking a different favorite song each time. That's how difficult this one is. If I Was Your Girlfriend, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, Forever in My Life, You Got the Look, and It are all very close contenders. This album has meant a lot to me over the years. I have lived this album and lived inside of this album. But in this moment, the greatest song, the one I look forward to the most, is probably I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man. It's one of Prince's greatest songs. You could make the argument it's his single greatest song. I don't know. It is absolute perfection. Every single thing about it, lyrically, compositionally, melodically, the guitar playing, everything. Worst song. There are no worst songs. This is a perfect masterpiece. If I have to pick one, I'll go simply because it sort of sonically stands out. It's going to be A Beautiful Night, but that's still epic and amazing, of course. But Prince was creating so much epic, amazing music. First of all, the expanded reissue of Sign of the Times is utterly essential. But he could have filled it out with any of those songs as well. So I'll go with that one. Next, we have Madhouse's 16, also from 1987. I also do not have a copy of that album. 10 is the song I will go with. They made a really fun video for that. Great groove, really great sax. It kind of ties together a lot of different strands of previous eras of rhythm and blues music really beautifully and effectively. It's great. We'll go with 10. Worst, not really a worst. We'll go with 11 because it's kind of a not as good version of 10. That's it. It's that tight of a race. Next, 1988's Lovesexy, another perfect masterpiece, one of Prince's greatest albums. If you want to make the argument that this is Prince's greatest album, you can certainly do that, and I wouldn't tell you that you're wrong. As far as favorite songs, I was actually able to pick one relatively easy. When Two Are in Love is one of my favorite Prince songs ever. Also, I know Anastasia and Positivity were up there, but there is one, and that, of course, is the absolutely sublime, perfectly realized I Wish You Heaven. Just an absolutely, utterly gorgeous song that in the process of re-listening, I re-listened to every Prince album for this video. I had to play that song 3 or 4 times in a row because it was just that beautiful. So we'll go with that one. As far as a worst, yet again, there is no worst, and I feel like an idiot choosing this, but I'll go with the title track for the simple reason that it goes on slightly long. That's it. That's all I got. This album is perfect. You could make the argument that this is his John Wesley Harding, perhaps. Oh, also, I will also throw in the great YouTuber Edwin Canestracci did an incredible review of Lovesexy and the Black Album. It's the best music criticism that exists on YouTube, full stop. So I will link to that video because Edwin makes some musical points and aesthetic points in that video that I think should be taught in schools. So check that out after you've watched this, of course. Next, 1989's Batman. If I am not going to count Scandalous as the best song because, as you can see behind here, we have the Scandalous Sex Suite. The Scandalous Sex Suite plus the song Sex on the B-side is one of the greatest things that Prince ever did. There is the sort of alternate version of Batman, like that would have 200 balloons on it. Like, there is a really cool minimalist masterpiece that is in and around the Batman album that could have just been another incredible Prince album and a really interesting follow-up to Lovesexy that unfortunately never came together. But the full, 21-minute version of the Scandalous Sex Suite is maybe the single greatest thing Prince ever did. It's certainly right up there. It is absolutely, absolutely incredible. But if we're going to include the cut-down version, the first section of it that has on Batman, then Scandalous is the best. If we're going to be super purist and insist that the Scandalous Sex Suite be held sacrosanct, then I would go with The Future. As far as worst, this was a tough one. It was a toss-up between these two songs. It easily could have been the kind of Disney Sacre in the Arms of Orion, but I went with Lemon Crush. It's perfectly fine. It's okay. I don't know. That's it. But again, missed opportunity here in a way, because the video mix version of Party Man, like all of the single mixes and B-sides from this period total up to what should have been a fully realized masterpiece. So I always like the music around the Batman album as opposed to listening to that album start to finish, if that makes any sense. Next, we have 1990's Graffiti Bridge. Best song, it has to be Thieves in the Temple, like I would think. Though that being said, if you have not heard the full 8 or 9 minute version on the single here, I will say you have not heard the song. You really, literally have only ever heard half of it. Go and seek out the full version of Thieves in the Temple. Other ones that were really close, because this was a tough one, The Question of You, Joy and Repetition, and Still Would Stand All Time. Those are right there. It's a tough one. And Elephants and Flowers, for that matter. As far as the worst, I don't like the re-recorded version of Tick Tick Bang. The original from 1980 is infinitely better, but I will go with the title track. Again, kind of weird, saccharine Disney music that is just not that good, basically. I don't care for it, so we'll go with that. Next up, we have 1991's Diamonds and Pearls, the album that had a ton of big hits on it. This is the holographic cover. I don't know if that shows up at all. But favorite song, this is an easy one. I love Willing and Able. Cream is great. Live for Love is good. Get Off. There's a bunch of great songs on here. But the single best song, and great video by Spike Lee as well. And that, of course, is Money Don't Matter Tonight. One of Prince's greatest songs, easily, and kind of towers above a lot of the other stuff that's on this album. The worst song, it's easy. Truly Getting Stupid in the House Tonight. Jughead, Tony M. I'm not a fan of Tony M, as we will soon find more of. Next up, 1992's The Love Symbol album. Best song could have been The Morning Papers, could have been Damn You. Those are great, but the best song is Seven. I remember seeing the video on MTV, 14 years old, absolutely loved it, found it completely beguiling and creative. It was one of Prince's last full-on kind of major pop statements that really crossed over, where he was kind of so far ahead of where music was. And it's just incredible. It's one of his greatest creations. Worst. This is an album I have really struggled with over the years and struggled to like. Nearly every song is really an over-egged pudding, and I really wish there had just been some judicious pruning. I think it would have helped a lot. I will go in this moment. I actually had 4 songs listed. I will go with, it's tough. I'll go with I Want to Melt With You. I've never really cared for it. It doesn't really do anything for me. We'll go with that. But I could have easily, I never really liked the Continental. And then there's the Kirstie Alley segues. Talk about over-egged pudding. From 1993, an album I do not have a copy of, and that is Gold Blank. You better believe I'm not saying the name of that album. An album that I downloaded. I didn't even know it existed for a long time. I didn't find out of its existence until about 10 years after it had come out. This was something I had just grabbed off the web at some point. This is arguably the worst album that Prince ever put out. There's long stretches of it that I just truly, truly do not care for. Best stuff on here, the song that had already come out, Call the Law. Oil Can is a great, fun 42-second instrumental. I love Oil Can. But the best song on here is easily, it's the best thing that Tony M ever did, and that's Together. It's his high point as a contributing member of the NPG. As far as worst, that's a tough one. Black Motherfuckers in the House, the rapping style really doesn't suit Tony M at all. It's one of his worst moments. Goldie's Parade isn't particularly good, but I will go with Gold Blank Part 3, in which time just seems to slow to a crawl as virtually nothing happens. So we'll go with that. From 1994, we have the album Come. And this was during the kind of the slave era, the beginning of the symbol era. This was at a time where it was very not cool to like Prince. Trust me, I was there. And making friends with people who liked Prince, it was sort of like a secret club at this point. That was kind of incredible to find people who liked Prince. But Come, I remember when it came out, Greg Dooley of the Afghan Whigs did an interview in Rolling Stone, and he was talking about how great this album was. And I always liked Greg Dooley, and I always thought he really understood music and had really good taste. And so I thought, if it's good enough for Greg Dooley, and I mean, I was a fan anyway, and I thought, if it's good enough for Greg Dooley, then by God, it's good enough for me. So Come is actually one of my favorite Prince albums ever. I love everything about it. I think it's pretty seamless. And picking a favorite, very hard, because we have Space, Loose, Dark, Let It Go, all incredible. But it has to be the epic title, masterpiece, Come, the greatest song ever about cunnilingus, the most epic tribute to cunnilingus ever created. It's amazing, though I easily could have gone with Solo. I talk about Beguiling, another one of my favorite things that Prince ever did. As far as worst goes, I think it would be easy to pick Orgasm, but I like that Prince did stuff like that. And I think it's cool that Prince did things like that. So I will not take the easy way out. I will choose Pheromone. Pheromone is awesome, though, and I love Pheromone. but it's maybe the least awesome on an album that I think is pretty incredible. Also, Come came out concurrently with the compilation 1-800-NEW-FUNK, which had not just Together by the NPG, but kind of the great lost Prince single of the 90s with a video directed by Ice Cube. And I remember what a thrill it was to catch the music video. And that was for Love Sign. Love Sign is fantastic. And I really wish that Prince hadn't been in a dispute with Warner Brothers and that would have come out as like a real single, you know? Also, the same thing with Peach being a B-side at this time. There's a lot of great music of Prince's that just sort of fell through the cracks during this period, unfortunately. Speaking of great music falling through the cracks, also released in 1994, we have finally the Black Album. This is a version that I bought when I was 16 in 93, so about a year or so before it officially came out. There was a sticker affixed, you can sort of see the wear and tear, that actually fell off. So that's the sticker that was attached to it. And this came out, this is the one time I will show the record, I guess. This, I don't know if you can see the image of Prince in there. I don't know if the light picks that up. But this was issued on Erotic City Records, and you can, if you shine it in the light, you can see the song titles. And I absolutely love the Black Album. I'll be honest, I didn't get it for a while. And I remember when I did get it, I was on a long drive at night, and all of a sudden it really started making sense to me. This is obviously after the CD version had come out. The best song, this is a tough one, but I am going to go with the epic oral cartoon, the brilliant radio play, Bob George. One of the strangest and weirdest things that Prince ever came up with. I love it. I love that live version that you can find out on YouTube. That's pretty amazing. I love everything about Bob George. It's really strange stuff, and I applaud Prince's strangeness in that. If I wasn't going to go with Bob George, I would go with Rock Hard in a Funky Place. A song that, you know, for us men of the world, I think some of us have lived in one way or another. Draw your own conclusions. As far as worst, there are no worst. There is no such thing as worst. So because it was already on Love Sexy, I'm going to pick When Two Are in Love. There's no such thing as worst on the Black Album, though. Speaking of great music falling through the cracks, another one I didn't know existed at the time, really, was the NPG Exodus album. So the first album had Sonny T, had a Tony M. This has Sonny T. Sonny T's vocals are fantastic and really fit this music like a glove. Favorite song? Tough one. Get Wild really jumps to the fore. But you know what? I love the early Funkadelic, or even more specifically, the Parliament Osmium-esque Hallucination Rain. Though, again, and I can't believe I'm about to say this for an album so obscure, if you have not heard the bootlegged full 10-minute version of Hallucination Rain, that's actually better because some of the best parts of that were cut out. So to hear the full version with the full guitar, that's the real Hallucination Rain. So either one of those, but we'll say Hallucination Rain. As far as worst, I love this whole album. This is arguably even better than the Black Album as far as like a true seamless funk masterpiece. Also, I will say Cherry Cherry is one of Prince's best songs of the 90s. Just throwing that in there. Good Life, too, but Cherry Cherry is incredible. And should have been on a proper Prince album. So I am just simply copping out and going with the 18-second segue where, like, the car pulls up and, like, it's 18 seconds. So we'll go with that. But this, if you've never heard Exodus, do yourself a favor and listen to this album because it is ridiculously good. From 1995, we have the Gold Experience album, kind of like the Symbol album. I think or even Batman, I think there's a masterpiece out there somewhere. There was a lot of music in this time. A lot of stuff came and went. The final album is kind of an odd mishmash of different sources. It's a frustrating one for me. If I have to pick a favorite song, I'll just simply go with Shh. But again, it's tough because there's Endorphin Machine, there's Dolphin, there's the title track. Like at its best, it's a great album, but I feel like it could have been a masterpiece up there with his other masterpieces. So, but Shh is awesome. And that opening, and then the way that it drops and the dynamic shift into the ballad portion, amazing. As far as worst, I don't know. There's a lot of sort of nitpicking I could do. If I wanted, I almost was going to say the NPG Operator number 4 segment. But if we're going to go with songs, we'll go with Now, because on an album, especially that has like Billy Jack Bitch, Now is maybe the least of the more sort of dancey songs. So we'll say Now, but I still like that song a lot. Also from 1995, the seriously underrated. Also from 1995, the seriously underrated Chaos and Disorder. I like this album very much. Picking a favorite song, it was tough, but I will go... that's a tough one. But I will go with I Like It There. Just a really great, fun rock and roll song. It's perfectly realized. Though this easily could have been Had You, Xana Lee, Right the Wrong. I love Dinner with Dolores. I've always really enjoyed this album. As far as worst, there is only kind of one song that really... Into the Light is a little mundane, but the one that jumps to mind is easily Dig You Better Dead, which is pretty listless and almost feels like it's like Prince by numbers. So that would be the song that I would choose. From 1996, the triple album Emancipation. Somewhere in there is a single great album, but at 3 hours or whatever it runs, it goes on. Favorite song is easy. It was my favorite song back then in 1996. It's still my favorite song now. Sleep Around, kind of a retro disco meets sort of light techno song the brass arrangement is incredible. The lyrics, the vocal, everything. It's that chorus, perfect. And it just goes on and on and on in a wondrous, beautiful, ever-unfolding way. And though there are some other really great songs on here that come close, Style, Dreamin' About You, The Love We Make is incredible. As far as worst, I thought about the cover of I Can't Make You Love Me, because Prince's vocal is great on it. The vocal's amazing. But the band, it really is kind of a sort of a Holiday Inn band arrangement. So I never really cared for that. But the worst is Da Da Da. Scrap D is sort of a bootleg Ice Cube, and here he sounds maybe like a bootleg Ice Cube trying to sound like a bootleg member of the Wu-Tang Clan. I don't know. I never cared for it, and I almost never listened to it. But I did listen to it to make this video. And one other thing I will throw in about Emancipation, when this came out, I was on the L one morning, and I was in college at this point, and I looked like a total psycho. I had 2 bad hair dye jobs, and my natural blonde hair was growing back, and I had shaved part of it down, and I basically looked like a psycho. And there was this guy, who was maybe like a year or 2 older than me, who was a black guy. He looked like NOI because he had a very neatly pressed Brooks Brothers suit, and I want to say a bow tie and a shaved head. And he was going around talking to people. This is like 7 a.m. And he was going around talking to people. And I thought maybe he was like evangelizing, or I couldn't quite sort of figure out what his deal was. And nobody was interested. And he finally starts talking to this woman, and I can hear what he's saying, and he's talking about this album. And he's talking about how Prince is a prophet and a spiritual leader, and that he's going to bring people together, people of all kinds together. And I thought, why not? I have a long way into downtown. Might as well go for it. And so I walk up, and I was pretty brazen back then. There would be NOI guys like testifying, and I would get into philosophical debates with NOI guys, and I was pretty brazen, and not in a confrontational way, but just in a, like, you're saying your thing, well, I'm gonna say my thing, and we'll see if those things coincide at all, and if we can get to some sort of greater truth, perhaps. So anyway, so I go over to this guy and I interrupt, and he's kind of looking at me like, who is this like total psycho? And we wound up talking the entire way into downtown where he was on his way to a job interview. And we talked about love and God and humanity and understanding and people coming together. And it was a really beautiful conversation. I've never seen someone smile that much in my life. And we had a really beautiful conversation. He got off at his stop. We waved goodbye. And I have always wondered whatever happened to that man. And as I went along to my stop, I thought, you know, there he is, Prince bringing us all together. Next, we have 1998's Crystal Ball. I have the 3-disc version. I found this maybe about a year or so after it came out. This is a pretty busted up copy. I'm not going to open it. Best song. There's Dream Factory, Sexual Suicide, Good Love, Days of Wild, The Ride. Oh my God, amazing. But I was going to go with, because you have to go with the title track. Is it the greatest thing he ever made? It's his masterpiece. It's an ultimate statement. I'm bucking that. I'm going with Crucial. Crucial, I'm going to say it. Crucial is Prince's greatest ballad. And yes, I'm going to further commit to this statement. It is better than Adore. Yes, I am saying it. Crucial is one of my favorite things Prince ever made. I absolutely love everything about it. And when listening to everything back to make this video, I listened to that album for 40 straight. I listened to that song for 40 straight minutes. I love it that much. Worst. Could have been Poom Poom, because boy, that chorus is irritating. But I am going to go with the reggae disaster, Rapop Go to Zippo, one of my least favorite Prince songs of all time. Okay, I lied. I am opening it up. Next up, 1998's The Truth. I could make the argument that this is Prince's best album of the 90s. I absolutely love it. My friend Van, it was why I started listening to his podcast in the first place. The podcast was called The Truth Podcast. So that was enough to get me interested. Love this album. Love everything about it. Best song? This is a tough one. I had 5 listed. I had Don't Play Me, Circle of Amour, Dion, The Other Side of the Pillow, and Comeback. I'm going to go with Don't Play Me. I think it's a great musical self-portrait of where Prince was at that time. And I have every reason to believe that he was telling the truth. It is the truth. Least favorite, worst song. There are no worst songs. Man in a Uniform is the least song on here. But the whole thing is incredible. And what a unique presentation for Prince. Love it. Next, an album I don't have a physical copy of, 1998's Kama Sutra by the NPG Orchestra. I've listened to this album a total of 3 times in my life, once to make this video. Best song is always Cuts. It's the one I look forward to. I like it. I like the using scissors as a percussive device. It's clever. I appreciate it compositionally. Worst, there isn't a worst. It's one long seamless piece. I feel about this album the way I feel about Glenn Danzig's Black Aria. I am glad that it exists, and I am glad an artist should feel the ability to create things like this. Like, the more an artist does things like this, the more I like that, right? That being said, I don't really engage with it that much. So, worst, Serotonin. It's 47 seconds. It's slightly wayward compositionally, I suppose, I guess, if I had to levy a criticism at it. So we'll go with that, Serotonin. Moving on. Next up, 1998's New Power Soul, the final NPG album. An album I could not stand for the longest time. I loved 2 songs on it and thought basically the rest of it, well, 3 songs, and I basically thought the rest of it was well, terrible for a very long time. This album, however, as life went along, I hear this album completely different now, and I actually think it's pretty brilliant. It is Prince's Street Legal. It is one last long, dark, sweaty, strange, confusing night of the soul before he finds the Lord the next day. So I have come to really love and appreciate this album. Some great songs on here: Shooby-Doo, Mad Sex, When You Love Somebody. I used to not like When You Love Somebody. When You Love Somebody is incredible. Wasted Kisses is amazing, but it really all comes down to 2 songs, and this has been the biggest toss-up of which way I would go. The obvious is The One, another argument for Prince's single greatest ballad, an absolutely stunning arrangement, stunning playing, stunning vocal, stunning lyrics, stunning atmosphere, really, really dark, strange powerful, compelling stuff. But I am going to go today with Come On, because again, I think it could have been another one of Prince's great singles and great pop statements. And the DNA of that song contains everything else I love about this, and the music that he was to make, like, within the next year or two. So Come On, I think, is one of his ultimate statements. It's incredible. Worst song, the heavily recycled Push It Up. Pretty easy choice. Another album I absolutely love, from 1999, the compilation The Vault, Old Friends for Sale. Like Crystal Ball, it's a compilation, but Prince made it, so I count it. And it was basically unreleased music. So, this is another tough one. Five Women, one of Prince's greatest songs. Again, should have been like a pop hit, like, because it's so great and bluesy and compelling and dark, and I love it. When the Lights Go Down, an amazing atmospheric piece. Love it. The ballad, extraordinary. Could have been, Billie Holiday could have sang that. It's absolutely gorgeous. But my favorite, She Spoke to Me. Yes, it's on the Girl 6 soundtrack, but that's amended. We got the full version here, and the full version where that version of the New Power Generation just goes off into really, really beautiful, like, jazz, like what you would hear in a New York City club at like 1 a.m. Amazing. I absolutely love it. But the main song part is, it's so totally beautiful. Worst. There isn't a worst. I picked My Little Pill because it's the shortest, and it was for the I'll Do Anything when it was still going to be a musical, the movie, and it maybe would make more sense in that context, but not really here. So we'll go with that. Next up, we have 1999's Raven to the Joy Fantastic, one of my least favorite Prince albums, and an album that really can truly drive me crazy at times. Best song. There's some great songs on here, though. Tangerine, Silly Games, Strange But True. Love Strange But True. But there's one song that truly towers above all the others, and that is I Love You, But I Don't Trust You Anymore. Incredible lyrics, incredible sparse arrangement, and a vocal performance truly for the ages. The worst. Ooh, Baby Knows. It's hard to get worse than Baby Knows, but damn it, it does. And that is the crime in music that is the version of Every Day is a Winding Road. I never liked the original, and then there is whatever the hell this is. So easily a low light in Prince's incredible body of work. So next up, from 2001, Rave Into the Joy Fantastic. Ah, yes, the one time that Prince amended an album. Best song on here, it's still I Love You, But I Don't Trust You Anymore, but if I have to pick a different song, we'll go with the exclusive to this album, Beautiful Strange, another great, beguiling studio creation of Prince's. You could take these two versions of the album and make a much stronger album. You could have Beautiful Strange on one end, and Strange But True on another, create some thematic continuity, who knows. As far as worst, well, Every Day is a Winding Road is gone, but Baby Knows is still there, so it's Baby Knows' Time to Shine is the worst. Next up, we have 2001's The Rainbow Children. This is a heavily conceptual work. It is one long theme piece. It is virtually impossible to pick out a song, kind of like Kama Sutra. It's kind of, even Lovesexy, like it's kind of hard to just pick out a song. So I will go with the one that I think works best in and out of context, and that's Everywhere. This album is heavy on the epics, but Everywhere is just a beautiful, joyous, kind of gospel frenzy song, and I think you don't need the context of the album for it to work. It just sounds great purely in and of itself. As far as worst, it's tough because there is the completely dispassionate love song, She Loves Me for Me, which, not to get into Prince's personal life, but if I were Manuela, I would have been pretty annoyed that, my take, it's a 3-hour love letter, and she gets one song where she's referred to as this one. But so that never my favorite song by any means. But I think it is topped by the very brief Wedding Feast, which is just, again, if you take it out of the context of the album, is even that much more inexplicable. But it sticks out on the album too. So we'll go with Wedding Feast. Next, from 2002, we have the fantastic solo piano album, One Night Alone, sort of a companion piece of The Truth in certain ways. A lot of great songs. Pearls Before Swine is amazing. Have a Heart is amazing. But I am going to go with Here on Earth as my favorite. Those other two, you could easily pick those, and saw as purely just as a song, maybe Pearls Before the Swine is the best, but I'm going to go with Here on Earth as an atmospheric mood piece. It really paints the picture. It puts you where in the headspace that Prince wants to put you in. I love this album. As far as worst, I don't know, it's tough. I like Arboretum. I could choose that. I could also choose Young and Beautiful, which is sort of the least song here. Maybe we'll go with Arboretum, because there's nothing particularly bad about Young and Beautiful. So we'll go Arboretum, kind of nominally calling that right here in the moment. From 2003, we have Expectation, the jazz fusion album. As far as, again, picking a favorite out of this one is sort of tough. I will go with, I thought about going with Expedition, the longer piece, but I will go with Exemplify. I think that really works on its own. As far as the least, I will go with Exosphere. It's because if Exemplify and Expedition do the most, Exosphere does the least. So by definition, I will choose that, though it's pretty tough because it's a pretty seamless album. Also from 2003, another jazz fusion album, News, North, East, West, South. Picking a favorite off of this is another really tough one. Basically, it was between North, East, and South. That sort of gives it away for the worst. I guess I will go with East in this moment. Though it's tough. I like the guitar playing on East, so we'll go with that. West is just kind of listless. Eventually there's some great guitar, but if I have to pick a worst, it's sort of hard to, because this is such a uniform formalist work, but we'll go with West. From 2004, the big pop comeback, Musicology. Not one of my favorite Prince albums by any means. The whole thing to me is very sort of Prince by numbers. It's a man, and not that this is a bad thing, but it is a man operating off of craftsmanship as opposed to wild inspiration. And I tend to prefer the wild inspiration in Prince. So, favorite songs. So the title track is great. Call My Name is great. Cinnamon Girl's an interesting song. Dear Mr. Man's a good political song. One of Prince's best political songs. However, the album is all about one song for me, and it's Closer, Reflection. Incredible. And I wish the whole album was more like that, because that's the artistic inspiration Prince that I know and love so much. The beguiling, where in God's name did he come up with that from, Prince? That's what I like in Prince. As far as the worst, tough one. I will go with, I almost picked The Marrying Kind, which I think is truly an over-egged pudding, but I will go with What Do You Want Me to Do? It's just sort of a light funk kind of throwaway song, so we'll go with that. From 2004, we have The Chocolate Invasion, an album that I wildly disliked when I would have first heard it a few years after it came out. The upgraded audio that you hear like on streaming now vastly helps it. That being said, it's still in the lower tier of Prince releases as far as I'm concerned. However, When I Lay My Hands on You is incredible. It's hard to top that. That's a great song. But my single favorite thing here, and I think the best sort of Prince song in the canon of Prince songs, and should have been another like hit single pop statement. It should have been more than what it was in terms of reaching people. And that's the epic You Make My Sunshine. Absolutely gorgeous. Love it. As far as worst, Judas Smile is compositionally all over the damn place. I really have a tough time wrapping my head around that. But I will go with Va-Voom, because when you already have Baby Knows, why rewrite it? The next album in this both of these are compilations. So there's the Chocolate Invasion and the Slaughterhouse from 2004, also released on the same day. We have the Slaughterhouse. This is a tough one. This, I think, overall is much better than the Chocolate Invasion, and I am going to go with S&M Groove, though it easily could have been Silicon or Why Should I Do That When I Can Do This. The opening volley of songs is a lot of fun on here. And again, the upgraded audio really helps, because back when I made this CDR, this was like, I don't know how many generations down, but lack of fidelity does this material no favors, I can tell you. So, also close, North Side is a really great funk song, and then Hypno Paradise is another sort of fun retro disco song. As far as the worst song, there's part of me that wants to say Daisy Chain, because the chorus thing of white girl giving it up always annoyed me. But I'm going to have to go with Props and Pounds, which is just sort of compositionally and thematically, again, really all over the place and just awkward. It's just an awkward funk song. And funk can be a lot of things, but it shouldn't be awkward. So we'll go with Props and Pounds. C-Note, another mostly instrumental jazz fusion. Obviously, Empty Room has vocals, and Tokyo has sort of a vocal. This is a tough one. Nagoya has a really good groove and a fantastic guitar solo, but I will go with Osaka, which I think is kind of a beautiful, melancholic piano piece. We'll go with that as the best. As far as the worst, we'll go with Tokyo, because it's the closest any of these jazz fusion albums comes just to outright, like, smooth jazz. Like, that I'm just not into that kind of music, so we'll go with that. Next is 3121, Prince's second of his major, in the trilogy of big commercial comeback albums that Prince made. I did not really care for this album at the time. Re-listening to it, again, I really found I love it. I think that a lot of it is really successful. As far as favorite songs, Love is great, Fury is great guitar, the title track is a lot of fun, but I'm going to go with the single, Black Sweat. Really cool, great, robo-funk, love it. Wish the whole album was more in this vein, because that and 3121, it really, really works. As far as worst, tough. The call and response part of Lolita is probably the worst part of the album overall. But compositionally, I'll go with Beautiful, Loved, and Blessed. It just doesn't really do that much for me, so we'll go with that. From 2007, we have Planet Earth, an album I bought the week it came out, and for some reason has gone missing in the past 2 weeks. I don't know where it is, so strange. Who knows? Anyway, Planet Earth, an album that I really wish Prince had just been less ambitious with, because it could have just been a fun, kind of lightly psychedelic pop rock album, and it would have been completely successful as that. But it goes in a lot of different directions. That being said, I think one of the best songs on here is Resolution, a song that I think really applies to right now very well. But Somewhere Here on Earth is my favorite thing on here. It's one of Prince's best late period ballads. It's really clever, it's really charming, it's beautiful. The arrangement of it is incredible, and the vocal is absolutely perfect. Also, love guitar. There are 3 ballads in the middle of the album, and as far as worst, there's not really necessarily a worst on this album. Lion of Judah wanders around a little melodically, if I had to critique that. But as an overall worst, I will say Mr. Goodnight. Of the 3 ballads, it's the least interesting, and it's probably the least interesting song overall for me. So we'll go with Mr. Goodnight. Next up, from 2009, Lotus Flower, though it comes with 2 other albums, and I'm sure you already know that. This is my favorite late period Prince album. I adore this album. There's nothing I don't love about it. And listening to it again for the purposes of making this video, listen to it twice. Love it that much. Picking a favorite song is virtually impossible. I will say, Forever, Feel Better, Feel Good, Feel Wonderful, Love Like Jazz, 77 Beverly Park, and Wall of Berlin. They're all amazing. I love this album. It was down between Boom, Colonized Mind, I think is great, again, one of Prince's great like social message songs. Back to the Lotus is incredible guitar stuff, really, really beautiful. But I will go, I mean, kind of the reason this album exists, the Voodoo Child Update Dreamer. Yes, it's chemtrail conspiracy stuff, but there's a lot of really good points in there that he's making, and I can deal with the conspiracy theory thrown in if there is a greater truth being pointed at. And if you play the guitar, if you're that much of a guitar genius and virtuoso, you can float in a conspiracy theory. I'm not gonna, that's not gonna wrinkle up my forehead. So, Dreamer, but I love this album. I really wish Prince had just sort of stayed here for a little while. It's the closest Prince got to making a late period masterpiece. I truly, truly love this album, and it meant a lot to me when it came out, and it only means more to me every year that I grow older. So, love Lotus Flower. Now, this was 3 albums packaged together. I went to Target and bought this the week it came out. We have Minneapolis Sound. Not one of my favorite Prince albums. So, the opening volley of songs is really good. I love Valentina, the bizarre lust letter about Selma Hayek, directed like through her daughter. Like, it's so weird, and I love it. I also like the ballad Better With Time. That's pretty. But it's all about No More Candy for You, where Prince just dials back to sort of controversy era, and it's really fun, and it's great to just hear Prince blow off steam and just kick out the jams. I love it. It's the best thing on here. The worst, I'll go with the ballad here. It's just really by the book stuff, especially for the band who created some of the best ballads in all of human history. And then there's the Bria Valente Elixir album. If I do a Protege video, I've thought about doing a video just about the Prince Protege albums. I would have a lot of fun walking through this one, because other than a couple songs, Elixir is very rough going, I will charitably say. In 2010, he released 2010, and I, being in a true big brain moment, created a UK Amazon account and bought this as if I lived in England, and then just paid the shipping because people were selling it for like £2. So I thought I was pretty damn brilliant, because there was no sight of a release for it in America at the time. So it was truly a pretty smart on my part moment that I finagled a copy of this for myself. I love this album. I love it nearly as much as I love Lotus Flower. Compassion, Future Soul Song, Act of God, Everybody Loves Me, Beginning Endlessly, all could have been my favorite. But I do have a single favorite, and that is Sticky Like Glue. Sticky Like Glue is my favorite late period Prince song. It has all of the Prince things from the 80s that I love, but it is mature, and it is the arrangement, the danceability, the vocal, the lyrics, they're funny, but it also has pathos. It's incredible. It's Prince like really giving in to his passion, and it's just incredible. Worst, I don't really think there is a worst. I nominally picked Walk-In Sand, but, you know, that I love this album. I think it is extremely underrated. If you don't like it or haven't listened to it in a while, listen to it again. 2010 is really beautiful. And then we get into the final volley of Prince albums. Plectrum Electrum with Third Eye Girl. During this time, Prince had the Third Eye Girl website where he was releasing songs one at a time, these MP3s that you would download. And I was in a group for Van's podcast, and there was a group of us that were kind of night owls, and we would Prince would upload these songs and we would react in real time. So I have wonderful memories of being awake at like 1 in the morning, and as Prince is uploading songs to the website and updating the Third Eye Girl page, we would download, purchase, download, and listen. And so I felt like I had some sort of weird, like, I don't know, 5 times removed interaction with Prince that way. So I have good memories of the early part of this period. Now, obviously not the later part. Favorite song, you know what? I'm just going to go with Plectrum Electrum. I think that's the true essence of this album. Though I will say the second half of Another Love, especially given what was soon to happen, is the single best thing here. And I wish that had just been the song, because the rest of it is just sort of okay modern rock, the first half of it. But yeah, Plectrum Electrum, also Whitecaps is amazing. Now, as far as worst, there's Funk and Roll, a song I don't care for whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. But we'll get to that later. So we'll say the rap rock disaster, Boy Trouble. Yeah, the gals in Third Eye Girl should not be trying to do like sassy and bratty rap rock. It does not suit them. On the same day in 2014, we have Artificial Age. Sort of the last real Prince album, because then there's sort of 2 more compilation albums that come along, which we will get to in a moment. I really struggled with this album when it came out. This was during my divorce period, and this album just struck me as things were seriously wrong in Prince world. I found this album very depressing, and given what later happened, I never could have imagined that it was that bad. And the whole album just has sort of a cloud over it for me of kind of just being, well, sad. Best song on here, easily Breakfast Can Wait. I love it. It's one of Prince's last great songs. It's so much fun, and it's so clever and sexy and just fun. I love the song. The other thing is, I will say, the now kind of probably out in the mists MP3 that he had up on his website, the best song from this period is That Girl Thing. It's a quiet, a little acoustic song that is absolutely gorgeous, that he just sings the hell out of. So go hunt down That Girl Thing, because it's amazing. As far as the worst, well, Funk and Roll. And this is a worst version of Funk and Roll. So it's, of the 2 versions available, here you go. This is the one to avoid even more. Now we are in the home stretch. So we have 2015's Hit and Run Phase 1. And I don't remember if this was the album or Phase 2 was, but these, again, were hard to obtain, I remember, and at least one or both of these was only available through mail order through Electric Fetus Records in Minneapolis, a record store I have been to a few times, and is a great record store. So you had to purchase it through that. I think the concept that Prince had, if I understand it correctly, was that the songs were written, recorded, mixed, and mastered in Minneapolis, and thus would only be released in Minneapolis. It was sort of a conceptual thing. I really miss, Prince did a lot of things like that, and I just would love that about him. And there was, for a major global superstar, there was always a handmade quality to his work, and that is one of the things I truly love the most and miss the most about the man. Anyway, best song on here. There's 1,000 X's and O's. I really, really like that one a lot. But the best song on here, easily, is June. And it is a wrenching, wandering, melancholic, late period classic. Plus there's a shout out to Richie Havens. And you just wish that there had been kind of a whole album like this, because this is the artistic inspiration Prince. This is the how did he come up with this Prince. And June is a really, really gorgeous piece of work. As far as the worst, we'll go with Like a Mac. It was between this and Ain't About to Stop, but I think Like a Mac is the one where he uses the word thoughts. So we'll go with Like a Mac. I'll charitably say Prince's EDM experiments weren't super awesome. We'll put it that way. And then we have, finally, the last album, Hit and Run Phase 2 from December of 2015. So this is a tough one for me, because, first of all, I like this album much better than Hit and Run Phase 1, because this is more funk, groove, and soul-oriented, and suits Prince infinitely better. As far as the best song, that's an easy choice, though, as much as I like... So Groovy Potential is awesome. That's a beautiful, kind of open-ended song that has really beautiful elements. That piano intro is incredible. And then there's Revelation, another great, wandering, late-period Prince song that you just... I have to assume there's more of that in the vaults. But the best song on here is this... one of the first when he started dropping songs on his website, and I have the single, I forgot to grab it for this. But Rock and Roll Love Affair. I will say Rock and Roll Love Affair is the last truly great, all caps, great Prince song in the tradition of great Prince songs, in the tradition of I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, or Nothing Compares to You, or Sometimes It Snows in April. Rock and Roll Love Affair is incredible. And again, everything about it, the brass arrangement, that vocal, those lyrics, it's such a great story song. And it just kills you, given what happened to the man. There should have been nothing but the road ahead for him. And God, he deserved better. What a weird cosmic error that was. Just, I hate it. Rock and Roll Love Affair. It's gorgeous. It's sublime. I've always loved it from the first time I ever heard it. For the worst, there's not really worst. There's some songs that sort of wander along a little bit too much on here. I'm not a fan of the re-recording of Extra Lovable. Find the original, especially since the estate won't release it. Find the original. Don't be afraid of words. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the best unreleased things he has. So nominally, the re-recording is fine, but the original version from 81, 82, whenever, that's the one to go with. But as far as that, leaving that aside, I will go with When She Comes. It's sort of the least developed song on here, and it's certainly not bad by any means, but it's not that great. And that's it. That is unfortunately how the Prince saga ends. And the last song on here, what is it, Big City, ends with him saying, "That's it." And then there's 50 seconds or 49 seconds of silence, which people have read all sorts of things into. And, he knew something was going to happen. But I contend that if Prince really knew something was going to happen, he would have put out a different album than this. I'm convinced of it. I think that whole thing... Well, he had the guy from Hazelden or whatever arriving the next day. So... all of it could have been avoided. Sad. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the fact that this guy, I think, is one of the great geniuses. Never mind the pop star talk, and people always focus on the pop stuff with Prince. I think that given the scope, range, depth, and breadth of his work, his extraordinary body of work, I think the only reasonable peers he has in the 20th century are Bob Dylan, Frank Zappa, Duke Ellington, and Miles Davis. He breaks the bell curve for other geniuses, and he stands alone, and it is an absolutely unbelievable body of work and truly proof that genius exists. I think Prince is the ultimate. That much of an overachiever in that many ways, as a multi-instrumentalist. Because if he was just a guitar player, he'd be the best guitar player in any band. If he was just a piano player, he'd be an incredible piano player. As a drummer, he's an underrated drummer, bass player. As a vocalist, he's arguably the greatest male pop vocalist of the 20th century. I mean, it's him and Freddie Mercury and a couple others, And as a songwriter, he's one of the greatest songwriters that ever lived. He's one of the greatest band leaders that ever lived. He's right up there with James Brown. I mean, he is and as a conceptualist, I mean, he was such a phenomenally talented force. And there will never be anything. When he sang on Minneapolis Sound, "There'll never be another like me," he wasn't kidding. So anyway, this has been my love letter to Prince, my best worst. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you did, like and comment and subscribe, and let me know where you disagree. Feel free to name as many best worst as you like. That's what the comments section is for. And like I said, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon with another exciting episode. But until then, bye!